In the ancient scrolls depicting divine judgment, the enigmatic narrative of vampires unravels as a spectral consequence intricately woven into the tapestry of Noah's fateful curse upon Canaan. From that pivotal decree, a shadowy lineage emerges, consigned to traverse the epochs with an insatiable thirst, akin to the eternal echo of a profound transgression. The genesis of the vampire archetype finds its roots in the profound annals of biblical lore. Exploring this lineage not only unveils an enthralling saga, but also invites us to delve deeper into the rich tapestry of biblical teachings within the works. Noah's pronouncement upon Canaan serves as a crucial precursor to understanding the genesis of vampirism. It marks a haunting legacy, one that carries through generations, resonating with the indelible consequences of ancient transgressions. The curse, veiled in the annals of divine judgment, catalyzed a lineage fated to wander the epochs, shackled by an unquenchable thirst, mirroring the everlasting repercussions of a grave offense. Vampire Archetype. Tracing its origins back to Eastern European folklore, the vampire archetype proliferated through legends, gaining significant traction during the 18th century Enlightenment era. This period of intellectual curiosity and supernatural fascination propelled these tales into Western attention, notably through literary works such as John Polidori's The Vampire in 1819 and Bram Stoker's iconic Dracula in 1897. Stoker's masterpiece not only cemented the vampire's presence, but also introduced enduring tropes like undead immortality and vulnerability to sunlight and wooden stakes, shaping the modern vampire archetype. Central to the vampire's essence is the primal necessity to consume blood for survival, invoking horror and tapping into deep human anxieties about predation and the violation of the sanctity of the body. This visceral act symbolizes a transference of life and power, reinforcing the parasitic nature of vampires and their predatory relationship with the living. Remarkably, biblical influences have permeated the portrayal of vampires, particularly in the Christian ritual of communion, where the symbolic consumption of wine represents the blood of Christ. The inversion of this sacred act in vampire lore serves to emphasize the creature's monstrous and anti-religious aspects, diverging starkly from the biblical injunctions against consuming blood. The biblical narrative, especially in Genesis 9, after the events of the flood, explicitly prohibits the consumption of blood, stating that the life within the flesh is within its blood and consuming it is forbidden. These commandments reiterate throughout the Old Testament in books like Leviticus and Deuteronomy, as well as in the New Testament's book of Acts. Life is in the blood. The profound significance of blood as the essence of life is a concept that the modern world has only recently grasped, with medical practitioners historically attributing life to organs like the kidneys, liver, mind, and, more accurately, the heart. While bloodletting was employed as a remedy, an excess proved fatal. Despite these primitive practices, the acknowledgement of blood's vital role persisted throughout history, often intertwined with practices deemed barbaric and, plainly put, satanic. Examining historical instances reveals the perceived sacred or therapeutic properties associated with blood. In the first example, between the 1st and 6th centuries, medical authors documented the consumption of a gladiator's blood or liver as a remedy for epilepsy. This practice likely traces back to funeral rites and religious backgrounds, persisting even after the prohibition of gladiatorial combat. The second example delves into the 15th century, where Catholic priest Marsilio Ficino mentioned prophetic women, popularly called screech owls, who supposedly sucked the blood of infants to rejuvenate themselves. This intriguing reference ties into biblical scripture and the evolution of the demoness Lilith, hinting at connections with Babylonian roots. The third example unveils the historical use of blood to strengthen the foundations of buildings, with the Temple of Shiva being consecrated with the blood of an adolescent. Such practices were widespread among Slavic peoples, reflecting pagan rituals even among those professing to follow Christ, but dabbling in the occult. These examples underscore the diverse historical contexts in which blood as a symbol and substance was believed to cure, relieve, and strengthen various elements, from epilepsy to the foundations of buildings. Nephilim Blood. Understanding the concept of Nephilim blood in the context of Canaan remains a challenging subject for many modern Christians due to deliberate avoidance within church teachings. The existence of giants born of the union between angels and human women challenges prevalent historical beliefs. These entities, born of corrupted blood, not only manifested as men of great stature, but also as humanoid-like beings dispersed across continents and cultures. This exploration delves deeper into the true origins of such beings, including vampires, tracing their genesis to a pivotal point where all things began, the aftermath of the flood. Upon the arks resting on Mount Ararat, the descendants of Noah embarked on building the first nation, not to honor God, but to exalt themselves. This nation arose from Ham, one of Noah's 3 sons, whose son Canaan was cursed due to his involvement in Noah's drunkenness. The biblical account in Genesis 9 narrates this incident, revealing the divisions among Noah's sons and the consequences of the darkness that permeated through Canaan's bloodline. The chapter further presents a passage emphasizing the divine blessings and cursings upon bloodlines, setting a significant context within the scripture. The subsequent chapter, Genesis 10, referred to as the Table of Nations, outlines lineages. These lineages, including the descendants of Ham, elucidate the origins of those behind the construction of cities like Babel, built by Nimrod, a figure of great significance in opposition to the kingdom of light. The scriptures portray 2 kingdoms, the kingdom of light and the kingdom of darkness, with Nimrod's involvement representing the latter. Nimrod's activities, although significant, were merely an extension of the malevolence initiated by the fallen spirits. Babylon origin. Babylon, within the rich tapestry of Mesopotamian history and mythology, encapsulates an aura of mystique and foreboding. Lewis Spence, in his work Myths and Legends of Babylonia and Assyria, eloquently reflects on the deep sense of darkness and the mystical allure prevalent in the ancient Mesopotamian culture. He delves into the belief in incantations, the invocation of countless spirits, and the haunting presence of various supernatural entities, ghouls, vampires, demons, and more that prowled the temple precincts, feasting on sacrificial remains and disturbing the slumber of residents. Kala, in a later account, specifically notes the association of the vampire archetype with Babylonian origins. He highlights the widespread influence of the vampire belief, dispelling the misconception that it was limited to specific races or regions. Recent research has debunked such notions, revealing the universality of this eerie belief across diverse cultures, both primitive and civilized. Even the ancient Assyrians conceived their 7 evil spirits as vampiric entities, illustrated in a chilling poem that depicts their destructive and bloodthirsty nature. The ancient poem reveres these 7 entities that wreak havoc, describing them as genderless beings akin to the howling wind. These spirits, devoid of compassion or mercy, embody the forces of destruction and chaos. They are portrayed as mighty and relentless, likened to raging bulls and ghosts breaking through barriers. Their insatiable appetite for blood and flesh is depicted vividly, painting a haunting picture of ceaseless violence and consumption.
If you found this video enjoyable, please consider liking and sharing it. Additionally, subscribing to this channel will ensure that you receive more updates in the future. Thank you.